Hello everyone, welcome to the Galar Champions Tournament, or the Champions of Galar Tournament, however you want to say it. I am Sally Mumble, coach of the Austin Tauros. You're here with the Herd Gang at the Stampede. That is the draft analysis. I'm super pumped. First, before we get into the picks, just want to say, feel really fortunate to be in this league. To get in, you have to have won a Wi-Fi, not tournament, a Wi-Fi league. During Sword and Sealed. You're going to see during the draft stream and throughout the season, there are just a ton of really great coaches. So I've been saying lately, if you've seen my channel, you've seen theirs. That's going to go without saying in this league, so I'm not going to keep saying it, but we have some really great coaches, some really cool people as well. I believe we are like a 10-week league, give or take. Somehow I don't think I'm playing Lucas, even though we've been in like 4 or 5 leagues together. But I'm really excited, again, really fortunate to be a part of it, very thankful for that. Hoping we have a really great season, and if you enjoy Draft League content, definitely like and subscribe, because I think you will enjoy keeping up with this league for sure. So let's get into it. With the first pick, we went with Tapu Coco. I believe we were like pick 9 or so out of 16, give or take. Give or take, like don't quote me, but like that's roughly where we were. We had about 115 points to draft between 10 and 12 Mons, and Coco was there. And if you've been on the channel, I don't have any shame for drafting Pokemon that I've used before if they work really well, especially in this league. Like, everyone is super talented. There's not a whole lot of room for error, just like in your battling and your drafting. Like, if you have holes, they will be taken advantage of. With that being said, I feel like Coco is a solid round 1 pick. It gives you base 130 speed. It gives you Fairy Electric typing, which is great. It gives you things like Defog. It gives you a pivot. It gives you agility, Calm Mind. It's just really good. You've seen the other draft analysis videos I've done. You know that Coco's good, so we don't need to spend much more time on it. So we will move on to our second pick, who is Sizzler, who is a new pick for us. We have not used Sizzler in Draft League. I did use it when I used the ladder way back when, and I feel comfortable using it. It's a really great steel type. It gives me 2 defoggers in the first 2 rounds, which is always really solid. So super excited about that. Gives me great priority, and it's a mon that I like to use. It's a bulky mon, has great priority, gets defog like I mentioned, nice U-turn, great typing. So in terms of the steel type, it was in pretty high demand. Like, I feel like a few people were gonna pick it right after I went, so I'm happy I picked up Sizzler. Some cool sets like Swords Dance. It can be bulky Swords Dance, Roost, all kinds of stuff. So I'm really excited. I wanted to value flexibility as much as I could in this draft, and I also wanted to. I have this like theory about like stats, and maybe like I'm wrong. Like BST. Like at some point, BST matters. Like just having Pokemon that just have high stats matter, and I feel like Sizzler was one of those mons that just like it's good at pretty much anything it wants to do, which I think is really cool. Next up is Ladiaz. We have used Ladios. We have not used Ladiaz, so that is a different mon completely. And I actually do think they play differently. I do think Ladiaz is more suited for bulky offense, whereas Ladios can be more of like a tank, not a tank, more of a nuke, I should say. Something you bring in can really take over games with offensive presence. I do think the support options on Ladios is really cool. It gives us 3 defoggers in the first 3 rounds, so like we're good on in terms of hazard removal. There will be very few weeks, if not a single week, where I should be able to find room for defog on one of these mons. And the reason why I went Ladiaz here is because I was expecting to pick up an ice type. If you've been on the channel, you know I love offensive ice types in draft. And so like Hydreigon was a mon I was looking at, and the person who drafted after me actually picked up Hydreigon. They thought I was going for it. Como was another mon I was looking at, just in terms of dragons. It may have gotten picked though. I think it got picked before I went in round 3, so it was like between Hydreigon and Ladiaz. And I'm a sucker for base 110 speed tiers. Like I always want to get them on that's like sitting there, because I feel like there are a lot of threats that are like right below that and then right at 110. So I think that's a pretty solid speed tier. It gets really cool options like Healing Wish. You can obviously run like weakness policy stuff, stored power stuff. So I do think it's a good complement to some of the other mons I wanted to draft, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So next up, if anyone thought I wasn't picking Mamo Swine when it was available in round 4 in the Champions of Galar League, then I honestly don't know what to tell you. Like, this should not come as a surprise to anyone. I feel like I've talked too long about Mamo already. You know what it does. It's a ground type, one of the best ice types in the game, stealth rocks. I'm going to end it there. We know what Mamo does. Next up is Zarude. I have finally gotten a dark type that's not Vullaby. Like, for the longest time, I was like, I don't need to draft a dark type early. I'll get Vullaby. And it never works out how I want it to. So I did get Zarude here. I was really happy to get Zarude. It's also obviously a grass type, but this is a mon where I'm just like, its stats just seem overwhelming to me. It's like base 100 or 105 HP, 105 speed, like 120 attack. It's just, it does a lot. So it can be offensive, it can be defensive, but not be passive. It gets jungle healing, so it can be a cool win con. So I wouldn't say the team is bulky offense. Actually, it might be bulky offense. It might be a bulky offense team, but it gives me another pivot. So I have 4 Mons who can all pivot because Ladiaz does get baton pass. Of course, you can't pass positive stats, but you can get some momentum there. Wanted a dark type because I never get a dark type. And like I mentioned, with jungle healing and bulk up, things like that, it's a pretty decent win con. Base 105 speed is really nice, just kind of fleshing out the speed tiers. I think it complements the team pretty well for the most part. We do have a Pokemon that has Levitate and now a Pokemon that just like naturally resists ground, which is always great when you have Zygardes running around. Zarude is a mon I have never used before in any capacity. It's actually not even on my game. I don't have a Zarude. So I'm really excited to see what he can do this season. Next up, Weezing. If I don't get Weezing Galar, then give me just a regular old Weezing. I think Weezing's solid. I actually wanted a Pokemon that resisted Fairy, that didn't have a ground weakness, and Weezing just kind of fit there. I also wanted to get some more hazards on the team. I do have 3 Pokemon who can defog, and now with Mamo and Weezing, I have 2 Pokemon that can emit hazards, Stealth Rock, and Toxic Spikes. Weezing is also just like a solid, like lower tier pick. I want to say the points range from like 20 all the way down to 1. So getting Weezing at 7 points is like pretty solid. It has decent, actually has a really good move pool and has decent offensive stats. So again, not particularly passive. It could be passive depending on like the type matchups, but it gets enough high base power moves and it's like special attacks high enough to where it's not crazy passive. Anyway, I've wanted to use regular Weezing for the longest time, and I've always had to settle for Weezing Galar, so really happy to get just regular old Weezing here, get a poison type with Levitate, neutralizing gas, all that kind of fun stuff. I also think it kind of has decent synergy with the rest of the team, with like Ladiaz, for example, something like Sizzler, kind of Zarude a little bit, so has some decent synergy, and I think overall a Pokemon that for 7 points will come to maybe half the matches, which I think is really solid to get, especially in this league. Next up, Lantern, who is on our current UPBA team, and I think Lantern's so good. I think it has like surprisingly good typing, because I think both water and electric are really great typings because they only have like 1 weakness each, right? Like, is that right? Water is just weak to, no, it's weak to grass and electric, and electric is weak to ground. So very minimal weaknesses there, and there are some abilities that kind of help you out with some of like the weaknesses or neutral hits, things like that. But with things like, I think Dracovish was drafted, I think like Tornadus and things like that were drafted, the Rotoms were drafted. It just gives me a good matchup against a lot of top tier mons for 6 points. Gives me another Pokemon that can pivot, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 who can pivot. And not to say like I'm going to bring all pivot moves in one match, but it's nice to have mons that can kind of get momentum, do different things. I want to say its stab typing is really good with water, electric, and it also gets ice beam. So something like Discharge, Scald, Volt Switch, Ice Beam is just solid. Like, it gives you what you need in terms of coverage, which is really nice. Next up is Mudsdale, who I had no idea Mudsdale had base 120 attack. That is crazy to me. Base 120 attack? So like you have Stab, Earthquake, and 120 attack. That's super cool to me. It also gets, it's not knockdown. It's like whatever the rock move is, that like Smackdown. That was close. It has Smackdown, which is cool. It gets Stealth Rock. It has a cool ability in Stamina where when it gets hit, its defense raises by 1. Can maybe do some cool things there. I also want to have another ground type because I feel like I feel like having Mamo as a ground type, like one, like it's cool, but two, it also is like, do I want to risk switching in Mamo to all the electric types who get maybe grass coverage or fighting coverage or whatever coverage they might get? Whereas like with Mudsdale, it's like, this is more just like a defensive Pokemon or a tank. Whereas with Mamo, it's like a wall breaker. So like I wanted to do certain things. I also want to get another rocker. So we do have 2 rockers and 1 Pokemon with Toxic Spike. So feeling a lot better about one, our hazard control and our hazards, which is really nice. And again, another about 7-point Mon. So we still have a lot of points to use up in the rest of the draft. Next up is Pincer. For 2 points, I really wanted to get Pincer. I was looking at the 1 and 2 point Mons and kind of what was going to be available as I got into like round 10, 11, and 12. And I think Pincer is super solid for 2 points. It gives me rocks, so now I have 3 rockers, 1 Toxic Spike, and then 3 defoggers. So I feel really solid with hazard control. I also think it's surprisingly bulky. It has like base 100 defense. It also has base 85 speed, which is pretty cool. It has some great abilities in Moxie, Hyper Cutter. It's definitely a Mon that I can probably fit in on any team if I really wanted to. And for 2 points, I think it's personally underrated. But I think a lot of people who draft like lower tier Mons think that those Mons are underrated to some extent. So really happy to pick it up here, and I feel like a lot more solid now with just my hazard control if I need it. Gives me another physical wall breaker. But looking at the team at this point, I do want one more, at least one more special wall breaker, and I think Kadabra was taken already. I think it was like between Pincer or Kadabra, like in this slot, like a 2-point Mon, who I think is just good and want to pick up. But Kadabra probably was already taken. So in the next round, I believe I do go with Porygon Z, who I've never used before. And at this point in the draft, I was like, I have a lot of points. Like I could have gotten like Darmanitan and Galar, I think. I had like 17 points or something. But looking at it, I was like, it's between Porygon 2 and Porygon Z. And I decided to go with Porygon Z because I felt like the team is pretty bulky, but I just wanted like a special breaker, like just something I can bring in and click buttons with. And I feel like if I had Ladiaz, I wouldn't feel that as strongly, but because I don't, I think Porygon Z kind of fills the role of special breaker really well. It gets things like agility, nasty plot, obviously. It gets pretty decent coverage, being a normal type. It also gets adaptability, which is really hard to switch into. Like I was doing some calcs for the week 1 match, and I was like, oh, if I bring Porygon Z, like kind of what does it do to some things? And it actually was doing more with adaptability boosted tri-attack than like some neutral hits, which is really cool. So anyway, I'm really happy to see Porygon Z on the team. It did knock me out in pack season 1. So if you can't beat him, draft him. Next up, if you thought I had Coco and I had points going into the last couple rounds in the draft and Sceptile wasn't picked, I don't know what to tell you. Like Sceptile has on multiple occasions just proven why it is such a great Mon. It has swept teams. It got me into pack playoffs legitimately. I feel like it was maybe a play or 2 away from also helping us get to finals in YCL, last season. So in my mind, for 4 points, Sceptile is a no-brainer. I love it. Sceptile is a really, really great Mon. Similar to Mamoswine, I've already spent too much time talking about it because you know what it is. And last up, but not least up, is Kubfu, who I feel like I want to draft in every draft, and sometimes I do pick it and then like kind of change it out during free agency. But I don't have a fighting type, and it can run a Violite, which is cool. I think it's like 72 speed and like 90 attack or something like that. So it's like passable. I'm probably not going to bring it too many matches, but it's nice to have a fighting type. It kind of complements the squad a little bit. Looks cool next to Zarude there. But that is our draft. Not going to talk too much about strategy or like what more I see these Mons doing because we have some really great coaches and I don't need to give them any more firepower or ammunition or thoughts going into our matchups. But I'm really excited for the season. Again, if you like Draft League content, I highly recommend liking, subscribing, and keeping up with this league. Aquarius has done a really great job of getting us graphics. Actually, I think Jack helped out with that too. But Aquarius also runs a tight ship. So we're gonna have things on time. We're gonna have videos posted. We're gonna have things on Twitter. So I really recommend you check it out. And all the other coaches, they'll be linked in all the descriptions for these videos. So let me know what you think about the team. Obviously, I do have some Mons I've used before. have some new faces as well. But really excited to see your thoughts on the team. Really excited for this season, and we'll see you for week 1. All right, bye.